This past year, Mississauga saw a huge spike in car thefts, break-ins, and theft. Every day, I'd hear a new horror story about what happened on our streets or in our backyards. Making sure that you and your family feel safe at your home or on your street is one of my core responsibilities. When we call 911, we expect an answer, and for police, fire, or paramedics to be on their way to help. Last fall, I hosted a community safety meeting with Peel Police, where hundreds of our neighbors showed up in a church basement to tell us their fears and what was going on the streets. What I heard was the need to do more. That's why I broke away from Mayor Parrish and other members of council to support the Peel Police budget. And this week, I'm excited to bring on Josh Colley, the Peel Regional Police Superintendent for 11 Division. Josh is responsible for policing everything west of Hurontario in Mississauga, a huge responsibility to say the least. In our conversation today, I talk with Josh about what that budget means for him and his team at 11 Division. And Josh grew up here, still has family here, and remains focused on how to keep everyone here safe. And beyond boots on the ground, we talk about how you can help Peel Police by making your home safer, as well as where Peel Police are going next. They're working every day to keep us safe, but it's up to all of us to ensure that Mississauga remains one of the safest cities in Canada. And now, my conversation with Superintendent Josh Colley. All right. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming on to the InCamera podcast, where we talk about big city problems and big city solutions. And really, Josh, I wanted you to come on to talk a lot about policing in the community, where policing has gone over the last few years, your career. But really, how did you get here? What got you into policing?
Well, first off, thanks very much for having me here. It's an honor being here. So I guess if I go back a little bit, just a little history of myself. I was born and raised until my early teens in Toronto and then moved to Mississauga with my family. So I'm a Mississauga resident, grew up in the Erin Mills area, went to John Fraser. So my whole family still lives in Mississauga. And from an early age, if it wasn't basketball in the NBA, I had a close friend whose father was on the job, and he would just pound safety and the meaning of community to us daily. And if it wasn't basketball, I thought policing was another calling for me. And so I went to college, university for a year at U of T over here, Arundel campus. Yeah. And then had a friend say, you need to try for policing. And I was 20 at the time, and I put my application into Peel, and a couple months later I was hired. It was a pretty wild experience, and I haven't looked back. So it's been 27 years, almost 28 years now. First police officer in my family, so it was new to them, obviously, from my parents, the worry. But working in Peel, growing up in Peel, they felt a little safer. And it's just been an amazing journey. I've been able to work in so many amazing areas. I started on the road.
So where were you? What division were you when you started?
I started at 12 Division. It's funny because this day and age, I say it's fine, but when I started, I didn't want to work in 11 Division. I just figured I would be seeing everyone I went to high school with. I didn't want to do that. So started at 12 Division, was on the road for a couple of years, and then quickly started to move into different areas. I'd say early on in my career, I was a school resource officer, which was probably one of the most rewarding. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But
yeah, we can get into that.
One of the most rewarding positions of my career. I still to this day run into some of the students from 25 years ago, and it's still, hey, Officer Josh, and they're grown with kids. So it's pretty amazing. And then I did our Criminal Investigation Bureau. And then from there, I was in homicide for 7 years. So that was a big chunk of my early career. Again, one of the most rewarding units, one of the most hardest on your personal life because of the amount of hours you're putting in. It was our busiest years when I was in homicide. And then following homicide, I went back to the road. I actually went to 11 Division. That was in 2011. Did that for a couple of years. And then from there, kind of my road up from promotion and was more of the administrative side. So I was a media sergeant for a couple of years, went back to NPU, so the School Resource Officer Program as a staff sergeant, and then into my now role back at 11 Division, which is an amazing experience as a superintendent.
Let's dive into that a bit more, because I don't think people really know, what a superintendent necessarily means. What do the division means? We've got 2 divisions in Mississauga, 4 four big ones across Peel, plus the airport and the new one that we're building in Brampton. But really, like Chief Nish likes to say, the superintendents of each division are like the chiefs of their own areas. And you've got the biggest area in the region.
11 Division, I will say kind of as a joke back in the day, we would call it ourselves, the Sleepy Hollow of Peel. And that has changed significantly. 11 Division is the largest. We do have the highest population throughout the region.
So you're all of West Mississauga from Hurontario to Etobicoke and Milton. Yeah.
No, to Halton.
Sorry, to Oakville and Milton.
Oakville, Milton. So and then from the shore right up to Derry Road. So geographically, we have the largest population. We have, and then you've got city center, which is just going up, which is adding to that. We have the most us and 22 go back and forth, but right now we have the most officers, about 325 staff at the division. And I would say on any given day, we are the busiest division from a call volume, from just sheer incidents that are happening. Mm-hmm. They range from intimate partner violence to mental health calls, violent calls. We're seeing, weapons. We do pull firearms off the streets, which we can talk about later. So there's a big, vast variety of calls for service. Yeah. And on just the makeup of the division, we've got about 200 frontline officers, so uniform officers, and about 100, just over 200 at frontline and about 100 criminal investigations, so our CIBs in those specialized areas. And then
what's CIB?
Sorry, criminal investigation.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to help with acronyms.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, that's our world is all acronyms, of course. And then we have our administrative staff, which are truly the glue. So and that ranges from sworn officers like our CLO, Melanie Kelly, who you've met before.
Community liaison officer.
Exactly, yeah. Again, once again, CLO community. Yep. And then that portion. So it's a great makeup within the division, and I'm super proud to be a part of it and work alongside amazing dedicated officers and civilians.
Yeah, so 11 Division is several 100,000 people that you're policing.
Yeah.
Communities from Lorne Park, Clarkson, Meadowville, Streetsville, City Center, Erin Mills. Like, it's a huge part of the city, and you've seen a lot of, I guess, kind of the changes over the years as well. You and I have talked quite a bit, especially in the last year, with some of the rise in auto thefts, with the break-and enters. People are afraid right now, and they want to know what's happening. They want to know, what you guys are doing, what we're doing to provide resources for Peel Regional Police. How has that translated? How has that increased budget? How has that led to more boots on the ground? And what's kind of going on in the community around here?
As you mentioned, 11 Division, definitely the makeup is residential, and so obviously the demographic of the location also is the demographic of crime. And so we see a lot more property, personal crime that happens here. We have affluent neighborhoods, so it obviously is attractive for criminals. And we talked about it before, where an incident has three elements, right? Victim, accused, and opportunity. And so our biggest job is to try to reduce or eliminate the opportunity to eliminate the crimes. And so when we talk about what we're doing as an organization, Chief Nish and our CMG have been instrumental in changing.
Chief Management Group?
Our Chief Management Group, yes. Okay. I will get it.
That's
promise,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm having fun guessing at what
absolutely.
It is.
And their commitment to essentially boots on the ground resources. So that really drives the way we do our job and how we can our service delivery model. And we can't do it without officers and the support behind.
But there was a real increase, right? I mean, and we had a conversation last fall, and I remember people were calling in and sort of saying, it feels like crime is going up. And then we went through the crime stats, and you called me, and you're like, yeah, they're going up.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, auto theft, break-and enters were probably two of the biggest from that property crime. Those numbers skyrocketed. Yeah. We did see an increase in some of the we call them violent crimes, but there's different levels of that. We had robberies,
like carjackings,
exactly. So obviously completely unacceptable. And I don't want to fast forward or jump to it, but what we saw with our budget ask that was approved last year in relation to 2025 and Project 300, which was allowing us to hire an additional 300 net new officers over and above, retirements and everything else. I think the number that our chief puts out there is over 400 when we talk about attrition and everything
Right.
else. That's just one step in combating crime, not just on the front line, but also in behind the scenes, because that also includes 65 civilian 911. You know, that
Yeah, to help with response times.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we know we've had these conversations. It starts from there. And so I was in communications about 2 years ago, and our response times to answer phone calls was not acceptable by anyone's standard. And so our chiefs management group did everything they could to get more bodies behind the phones.
Plus the technology that we had to upgrade.
Yeah. So, you know, NG 911, which is making our phone system digital, allowing us to do so much more.
Yeah.
It's provincially mandated.
But we're like the pilot, right?
We are the pilot, yeah.
Yeah.
So the region and support from counselors like yourself allowed us to venture ahead of time to have the funding to be able to implement this digital technology.
Next generation 911.
911.
So what are the times at right now, roughly?
I don't have the exact number, but we're down to 8 to 10 seconds on the high side
Yeah.
if we were to answer a call. And before,
It was bad before, and I got to tell you a bit of a personal story because a couple years ago, my dad, who's in his 70s, I don't know why he was up on his roof, but he was up on his roof looking at the gutters. He was trying to find a squirrel or whatever it was, and then the ladder fell, and he fell off. And when he fell off, like, he got really injured badly. His bone came through his arm. He was bleeding all over the place. Luckily, my brother was there, and my brother called 911. 8.5 minutes. He never got an answer. Like, he was on hold for 8.5 minutes. And I brought this up at council. Luckily, he was okay. My brother just threw him in the car and then just drove to the hospital himself. The officers admitted this is unacceptable. We need to do more, right? So I'm so happy that the investment has led to a huge uptake or huge improvement in the call response, because this is one of the basic services we provide, right? As a municipality, you call 911 for help. You get police, you get fire, you get ambulance. These are like the basic services that we have to give to people and what people rely on.
and actually it's funny because I'm not sure if we even spoke about it since then. I was the inspector. I actually was there and took the complaint as it came, or
Right.
the information, and you nailed it. Completely unacceptable. And that, you know, wasn't the driving force, but that was just another instance of where we recognized something had to change. And, you know, just to put in perspective for everyone, when we talk about the sheer volume of calls that we receive, because we call it PSAP, the primary service, or like answering.
Yep.
In Peel Regional Police answers for fire, ambulance. They're the primary center. So
Yeah, they
every
field all the
night,
calls
yeah.
and then they pass it off to ambulance or
OPP,
fire dispatch.
either
Yeah.
or, yeah, anywhere within the region, and sometimes outside, just, you know, tower dumps and everything else. We're over 1 million calls a year.
Yeah, it's wild.
And, you know, you've seen so much education on misuse of 911, the importance
It was
of
like 30-40% of the calls.
Yeah. Well, that's right, 'cause you came up when we were presenting.
I mean, it's an amazing place.
Yeah.
I mean, your call takers are, I think, among the best trained.
Absolutely.
But they're standing there or sitting there in front of, 6 different screens and trying to manage these calls that are coming in, and they're trained in crisis management. They're trained in all these things, right?
Yeah.
And they can do so much important work. So I'm glad we've been able to hire more, and
Absolutely.
and the technology
And the numbers
really
come
improved
down
the times.
significantly.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about, I guess, the response to the increase in crime that we've seen just in the last couple of years, and maybe a little bit as to why. But what have we done since? What have you guys been able to do?
Like I said earlier, it does start with boots on the ground and resources. And again, applauding the ability for our budget to hire these officers. And so the one big piece is, and it's very important for everyone to know, those net new officers, the absolute direct correlation to the front line. And so we wanted to be very clear, Chief Nish and the management group wanted to be very clear that those officers will be frontline. You will see an increase of cruisers, and it allows us as superintendents to be more strategic on our response. So I'll use our division and use your ward, for instance. You know, there's a 33% increase in cars and officers down in your ward in the Lorne Park area.
On patrol.
On patrol.
Yeah.
We are able to do more. Our CERT team, our community incident response team,
Yeah.
which allows us to focus on community complaint areas, traffic concerns. We've been able to increase and create a divisional traffic unit to When we get a complaint zone, we put hours on it.
And they also did some preventative measures, right? I heard they were kind of going around. They saw an open garage,
Yes.
or they see because we do these things called SEPTEDs. I actually don't know what SEPTED stands for, but it's an assessment of the area, right? Where you kind of walk around and you sort of say, those bushes should be trimmed back, or that light isn't significant, or I can see golf clubs in the window, or whatever it is. And they're doing a lot of that preventative education, right? So what does SEPTED even mean?
So SEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design, and essentially, our officers will come out, walk an individual's resident or a property or an area to talk about, trees that are blocking natural light or having lighting, additional lighting, or security fencing. So it's really just taking an overall look at a location and seeing ways we can change the design to make it safer.
Yeah, where they could put cameras
Absolutely.
or things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and actually that is probably one of the most important pieces. And I know everyone, and rightfully so, as a resident, you want to see more cruisers on the street, but that doesn't. Our calls for service. I'll just paint a picture. In 11 Division alone, it ranges from, in a 24-hour period, 140 to, on the high side, 260 calls in a 24-hour period. That's calls for service that we have to respond to in one way or another. And when, if it's an intimate partner violence or one that is an extended investigation,
Yeah.
that's 4 or 5 hours that an officer or 2 officers are involved in that. So you can imagine the sheer volume of calls. So part of our fight against crime and a safer community is the proactive ahead of time. So the SEPTED, like you mentioned, having officers going and doing individual, and we've offered this at community meetings to say, if you as a resident or as a community are looking for some additional crime prevention tips, we will come out and look at the area exactly to
with
your point.
Safe City Mississauga as part of that.
And they're a huge partner for us. Again, this is not just a police issue or a response. We need our community partners, and Safe City Mississauga is another example of just the way how we're going to do this together.
One of the messages I think that is hard for people to hear is that these criminals, if they want to steal your car, if they want to break into your house, they will. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough money and resources to have like a cop at every street or at every house and be responsive to prevent those things. So what we should do is educate them as much as possible so that they can make their house or their vehicle less desirable, right? Because
Absolutely.
If you're well lit, or if you've got, the club on your car or a boot or whatever it is, that makes them want to move on to someone else, right? But that the determination of some of these criminals are, they have the tools, they know how to do it, and then we're constantly sort of in this fight to make it less desirable for them to do those things.
Yeah, and someone who's much smarter than me had a very simple analogy, which was, we can't police behavior. Mm-hmm. And so, that's an important piece of information, because to your point, determination of a criminal, they're going to do it. And we've talked at meetings before, community meetings, where the expectation is, well, I want to see an officer on my street. And I say, my response is, if we have 1,000 streets within the community and within 11 Division, I can't put 1,000 officers on a street 24 hours a day. So unfortunately, there's opportunity there. But, if you're taking all the steps, like you mentioned, lights on at night, club, putting your cars in the garage and obviously this is where you're able to, any small thing.
Keeping your keys away from the front door.
Exactly. Yeah. That makes it less accessible.
Covering your VIN
desirable.
number. There's a bunch of these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And those are the things that we do together. And I'm going to, if you ask me, but I'll just kind of segue into the whole stats. I'm very proud and happy to say that our stats for 2025
year over year
are going down. And we truly do live in one of the safest communities in Canada. And that's not because of what the police are doing. That's what we're doing as a collective. That's what our residents are doing with the information that we're sharing, the crime prevention. That's what we're doing with our partners like Safe City Mississauga. It's a collected effort, but it's making a difference.
I remember one of the things we were saying a couple years ago was, Mississauga is the safest big city in Canada. And then I was going through the specific crime data in Ward 2 when we were saying, this is the safest neighborhood within that. So we're in the safest neighborhood in the safest large city in the country. Obviously, there's more that we can do, and we're going to. And these stories that we hear of people getting, held up at gunpoint or getting broken in, they're personal attacks. So it's tough. It's not something that you can be like, yeah, but we're still in the safest community. No, obviously we hear them. We sympathize and empathize with them. We want to do more to support them. What else do we need to do as not just a municipality, but we have the ability to try and lobby the provincial government, the federal government, whether it's bail reform. What are some of these other determinants of crime that we can address?
Great question. So bail reform, I think, is one that we all. It's continued conversation. I'll tell you from, and this is Josh, saying it is definitely frustrating when you go out and arrest somebody and they're released, before you're back in for your next shift. And for some serious, so when you see people talking about bail reform and criminals that are out doing the same thing, not even 24 hours later, it's frustrating. And we know that it's on the forefront. But I think if we look at auto theft, and our organization back in 2023 did a auto theft summit.
Yeah, we were leading the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it brought together important folks, but we talk about from the federal level, the ability to put more pressure on the insurance board and the manufacturers. It's 2025. The technology is there for immobilizers, and the inability to have a car start without certain technology.
Right.
If we know that, and I'm not just rhyming out the car manufacturers because it's a stat, if we know that Toyota and Lexus are one of the leading vehicles that are stolen, why is there no pressure on Toyota to install immobilizers on every vehicle?
Right.
Why are we not taking away or putting additional safety features in these vehicles?
I remember talking to the insurance board about this, and they have a list, right, of the 10 most stolen vehicles. They might as well say the 10 most easily stolen vehicles as well. So, consumers have a choice as well with where they buy their vehicles. These are not cheap things. And you can see even with either Teslas or other EVs, they're less desirable or they're less easy.
Difficult.
They're more difficult to steal.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of that's just the technology.
Yeah. And I will say, and on the insurance board, we say, well, if you have a list of 10 most stolen, do you not share the responsibility to go to these manufacturers and say, we won't insure your vehicle?
Right. Or your insurance is going to go up.
If you don't do something to remedy the opportunity. And again, this is just Josh speaking.
That's okay. One of the crazy stories I heard was, especially when we were talking about bail reform, was that somebody was arrested, and I guess arraigned and then let out on bail. And then when you collect your belongings, they were caught red-handed stealing a vehicle. So then they were returned their belongings, which included the tools that they used to steal the vehicle.
Yeah.
And then they went back into the parking lot and stole a vehicle to go home.
Absolutely.
That's a wild story.
It's and it's a reality that, and I'm glad most people don't know, because obviously you from a safety perspective, those are the things that we don't want people to have to worry about, but it is a reality. And it's things are not going to change until bail reform is brought to the forefront.
Yeah, but we'll just keep arresting them.
Yeah.
We'll
just it's I hate to say the analogy, the cat and mouse game, but at times that's what it is.
So what else? So that's the federal level of government. Provincially, what else can they do? Because they manage a lot of the judicial system as well.
Yeah, and we see some of the pressures that the current government is putting on our courts, and I will say, at this level, I have an opportunity to see the funding. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of support from the provincial government when it comes to different funds, funding grant proposals that are being put through to allow us to combat. So when we talk about, and I'm just going to throw out the STEP, which is strategic enforcement, essentially directed enforcement. It's a grant that allows us to be able to continue to target gang violence and weapons, but then also allows us as frontline officers to put more resources. So the provincial government is doing a lot in that respect to help us offset costs to be able to do more frontline. And then again, it's just staying on top of reinforcing the importance at the provincial level courts when it comes to bail and to continue to be hard on crime.
So let's get into a little bit of the social determinants of crime. Like, why have these things become more prevalent over the last couple of years? Was it COVID? Like, where are the gangs coming from? I know some of them are kind of either other national groups coming in. Is there a turf war? Like, why has this suddenly become more of an issue than it was before?
I truly don't believe it's more of an issue. 28 years, especially all within the region, we've always had gangs. We've always had violent crimes. I think where we saw is COVID really changed the ability to speak like this to digital and social media, and it just really blew up that platform that was already still there. So I just think the messaging and this information spread is much greater, especially after COVID.
Like people sharing the stories of this is what happened.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so you're just hearing more of it. Do I think, obviously, the sophistication of criminals with technology, absolutely.
Because they're recruiting people through these platforms too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And crimes being more violent because the carjacking, when you look at carjackings, everything else, was it there? It was always there, but it's just we're knowing and we're hearing much more about it. And, our media outlets, it's when they focus on certain violent crimes and you'll see a carjacking and all of a sudden you'll see 4 or 5. They're still happening. You may not have been hearing about them, but if it's happening and it's just the spread.
So what's the incentive here? How are these gangs or criminals incentivizing and recruiting these young people? Are they just saying, "Oh, you'll get this much money"? Like, how much do you get for stealing a car? And are they telling them, "Oh, because you're young, you're gonna go to juvie, you'll get a slap on the wrist and you'll be fine"?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to glorify or they're preying on the unfortunate, to your point, young, weak folks who are in a bad situation. They're truly preying on them, and they're using monetary gain to their advantage. Exactly what you said. You're a child. You're not going to go to jail. It's going to be it's much easier for you to get away with. There's less for the police to do. The sophistication of their methods are also improving. It's difficult enough for the police to stay caught up to what the criminals are doing. And with the funding, with our budget and with what our chief and chief management group are doing, we're there. But every day the sophistication grows and we have to stay with it through technology and training and everything else.
So, I asked the chief this question, I think in the last budget cycle. We were talking about the upstream pieces that we can do to prevent more crimes, right? Because obviously we need the boots on the ground to respond to what's happening. And some of that is a bit of prevention. But what else can we do? Because I know there's a lot of programs that PRP or Peel Regional Police want to invest in. You have partnerships with the Ministry of Health to help with mental health and addictions. There's other things that you're working on as well to try and prevent people from sliding into this.
So our and thanks for bringing that up, because that is one of the most important pieces. Our CSWB, our community safety and well-being pillar, which is, I'd say, since Chief Nish came to the organization and really pushed. It's the approach of the actual crime is probably the smallest element, but it's everything around it and the wraparound services and bringing community partners together to try to get to the root cause or of the issue or the incident. And so our CSWB strategy really harnesses, rather than looking at the carjacking is, okay, or maybe not carjacking is not the right example, but let's call it an incident. Who can we bring to help that individual so that there's not repetition? Who can we bring to the table to help remove the situation or elements from that situation to prevent it from happening? And that's what we've been leaning on. I'd say over the last 5 years, that pillar has been critical for us to be able to continue making this a safe community.
So you grew up here. I grew up here too. I remember, over the years, especially in high school, and kind of the reputation of Peel Regional Police. Because when I first got elected, Chief Nish came in, he gave us these briefings, he talked about how he wanted to turn PRP into the most innovative, progressive, diverse force in the galaxy.
Yeah,
and that's kind
absolutely.
of his joke, but also his vision statement, right? And one of the things I remember saying to him was that that's amazing. I love hearing that, and I love seeing all the things that you're trying to do to get there. But trust is something that is hard to earn and easy to lose. And as someone who grew up in Mississauga, and you go back and see the headlines, you do see that in the past there were definitely these traces of, racism, of profiling, of Peel Regional Police not necessarily being the best community partner. And while we're at a completely different place now over the last 5 years since Chief Nish has been there, that history is still there too. And it's hard to get over because people might have lost trust in the past, and it's obviously hard to earn back.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. So I grew up here. I've been doing this job for 28 years, like I said earlier. I've had the opportunity to see full. I don't know if it's a full circle. I want to say 180 because it's changed so much, like you said. When I started in '99, 98 is when I was hired. When I started in '99 on the road, the demographics of PRP, Peel Regional Police itself, was completely different.
Yeah.
And to see where we are, and it's not disparaging any previous management or any, chiefs or anything like that. I just think with the need to diversify our organization from support right through the front line, what we've seen in the last 5-7 years has been unbelievable. Growing up, I would never think to see officers, that resemble or that reflect the community. And going to high school at John Fraser, I remember seeing the odd one, and I would just be like, "Wow, that's pretty wild." And it was motivation. And now our everywhere you look, an officer, there's a diverse officer, female, and it's amazing. And it actually is truly one of the fabrics of why we're so successful as an organization.
Absolutely. I mean, I know you can't necessarily criticize previous administrations. I can. But, there were some serious problems. I remember talking to Deputy Chief Mark Andrews about this because there was a case in Peel, I think in our area, where there was a young black man who was, wrongfully arrested, and then he died. And I remember Mark saying that was one of the reasons he decided to join the force. Because he said, I never saw a young black man like myself be a part of this. And I'm either going to be part of the community or I'm not. Right? And choosing the easy way of like, oh, this is going to happen, bad things are going to happen if I do that. He didn't. He leaned into it. And it seems like something that you're doing too.
Absolutely. And I mean, he's a mentor of mine. And, if anyone's heard him speak, his heart is rooted in the community, and he's a Lauren Park and football guy from here. So his heart truly is, and so I follow that exact same. It's funny actually you bring that up because his path was what I followed. I wanted to be in homicide almost the exact same time he was in his career, and I saw the value of how he was able to grow, and everything he said is absolutely true. When you grow up in the community and you have the ability to try to affect change, there's no better way than
be a part of it. Exactly. And I guess police aren't one giant thing, right? It's not a monolith. You have different voices inside the force that help drive change. Because the previous chief was a huge advocate for carding, right? And it took political leadership to say you can't do that. We don't accept that as a tool. Find other ways. And we have a new administration now leading the police, and you've found other ways, and it's been effective.
Yeah, and you talk about some of the things that have really helped the way we police. Technology. Again, previous administrations' technology was not on the forefront, and you've heard us say before, and I've said this very clearly. One of the reasons we talk about the budget, I'll just touch on it real quick, and we understand that it was a very big budget ask to council and to the region, but it was necessary for so many reasons. Obviously, for a period of time, although we were hiring for attrition, but we weren't hiring for the growth of our region, specifically Mississauga. And when there are a number of years where you're just not keeping up and trying to forecast and see and look ahead, unfortunately there comes a time where we have to really put the pedal down. And so, our chief and management group recognize the importance of getting our complement up to a number where we can safely say we're keeping the residents safe. And that includes technology as well and infrastructure. So yeah, it's a high budget ask, but it's all necessity for us to do our job successfully.
Yeah. I think one of the things a lot of people don't realize as well is that Peel is the third largest municipal police force in Canada.
And I will say, second at times. I think it really like day by day.
Between Montreal?
Yeah, where they have a class and they take it, but then I'd say 2-3 for sure.
Yeah, because we're policing. You're responsible for 1.5 million people.
Yeah, I think the number is 1.8 is what I heard, unofficial number, because that's what's funny with our region.
Sure, there's the census, and then there's the people who come in, and then there's the people who are hiding.
Yeah,
and you're dealing with so many different problems now. What have been some of the biggest challenges from when you kind of started? Like we talked about the evolution of policing, but you're dealing now. We have an intimate partner violence team. We have a cybercrime team. You have all these different things that we're trying to stay in front of the criminals that are happening. That big gold heist that was at Pearson, that was, the division over there was investigating that.
Yeah, the evolution of crime itself, and that's the evolution, the use of technology. Back when I started, there were no cell phones were just getting into. We walked around with a pager. That was the cool thing in high school, was having a pager. And then you'd have phones with no cameras and that technology. But it's just the evolution of technology, the evolution of the crime, the sophistication of the crime. We talk about the gold heist, the planning. They wouldn't be able to pull that off if they didn't have certain technology at their fingertips and the ability to use it. So that's where I've seen the biggest difference is our ability to combat those type of crimes is through our growth from the technological field.
But technology has also been helpful for you, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Because now you have cell phone cameras who can give you more evidence. You have Ring doorbells.
Yeah.
And, I've had my door knocked and like, hey, your neighbor across the street just lost their car. Do you have footage? And then it's like, yeah, here you go. You can take a look at that kind of stuff. Body cameras is a big thing that we do now, too.
Provincial grant for helicopter, ASU, our aerial support. The addition of the aerial support unit has been huge for our ability to combat crimes.
So you're going to get to go in the helicopter?
I will. I'm not a helicopter. I've been in one. I'll let the professionals do that. I'll stay on the ground and just down from there. But that's going to be a huge piece for us. Just when we talk about auto theft, the ability to respond to certain dangerous crimes. So the technology piece for us has been amazing.
And we have drones. You have some pretty sophisticated drones too.
ASU, the aerial support unit.
So it includes drones and the helicopter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The drones, again, that's another, and we keep growing. We just had a meeting with city staff to talk about the use of drones on city property. Rapid response drones, the ability to have, if there's an incident within a specific area, a drone going up just to start capturing footage. There's so much at our fingertips that we still haven't harnessed. And working with our partners, it's just the ability or the capabilities are endless.
So let's get into a bit of advice for some of the residents who are watching or listening, because we get some of these calls or we get these emails and they're saying, I didn't want to call 911, or I'm watching it happening right now on my phone. Can someone else do something about it? Or can you go chase these people around the block? Like, what are some of the things you want people to know?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's what we say quite a bit. We never want to shy people from calling us ever. That's not the goal. But when we talk about the 911 education, is using 911 for immediate threats, public safety issues. When we talk about having footage of a potential auto theft or that kind of stuff, using the non-emergency line, which is 905-453-3311. Asking for communications, making up a call, using our online through our website, our external website, opportunities to report certain things, and then using our divisional resources. We go into the community, and I use our community liaison officer as an example to say, if you have footage, call into the division. We will deal with it. We'll provide a link. Technology again.
Yeah.
Providing a QR code to upload that footage.
Yeah.
We never want people to shy away from calling us
905-453-33111.
Non-emergency.
Yes.
Non-emergency.
But it's the same call takers, which I didn't know.
Yes,
That was
yeah.
one of the things I learned when I went to the center, is that you're in the queue and you're still going to talk to a 911 operator.
Absolutely.
It's just, obviously it's not at the front of the queue because it's not a life-threatening emergency.
Yes, and that's the whole reason why we don't want people tying up the lines for non-emergency calls when they're calling 911 and then they're transferred back, because when they do that, you're taking away the ability for somebody else to call for an emergency. So going back to just the community, we talk about the prevention. So just staying in contact with us, providing that information, sharing anything that you see, and from a police response, it may not be immediate, because we are also going through the information to see what kind of response is necessary, but it's not being ignored. We are absolutely cultivating the information, creating, and be amazed. People would be amazed to see what goes on in the background when talk about investigations and association charts and how we put into different categories to build cases for larger investigations.
Always report it.
Always report it.
Yeah, and maybe stop calling me.
Don't call the counselor, because I will absolutely take those calls and my team will take those calls. And we share the information anyways. That's what's amazing is our ability to share between us and the relationship that we have. And really the overall goal is community safety. And I'm being a little facetious about it, but like I totally hear and understand people's concerns, and we just need to go through the process of what's appropriate, right? I mean, if something's happening, call 911. If we want to talk about what's going on in the community, speeding, traffic, increase in crime, I'm happy to have those conversations with the people, and then you and I can talk about how you're delivering those resources, right? And that's the role of the board, and that's the role of council, is really to provide you those resources that you need to fight crime and prevent crime here in the community. Yeah, and I will say, and I this is not a cheesy plug by any means, but the support that you've given to our organization and you specifically, and support to the division, we can't do our job without that support. And so you have committed to public safety, and I'm not just saying this. Your ward is definitely one of the safest wards, and again, that's a collective effort. But just for the residents, they really need to pat themselves on the back. Like, it's in an urban setting as big as we are in one of the major cities across Canada, to be able to say that is no small feat. So I'm just going to say thank you for your support. Appreciate it. And together, it's just a safer community.
Well, no, our residents are really engaged, which is great.
Yeah.
They've got these WhatsApp groups going on. They've got these Facebook groups. They're talking to each other. They're more conscious about this now, which is fantastic. And they're learning more. And we're providing them the materials of, this is how to keep your home safe. This is how to keep your vehicle safe. At the end of the day, that's property. But there's also all these other things that we want to help prevent crime in the community as well, that they're starting to engage in. We're doing more of these SEPTEDs where we're trying to help people keep their community better prepared, right? But also being able to deal with what happens after the fact too.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't live here now,
Right.
but you're here all the time.
I am. Yeah.
You got a couple of kids, a couple of boys.
Yeah. My little guys are just turned 7 last weekend and 10 this weekend. My parents, my brother, my siblings, they also live in Mississauga, same house. So I'm here working and for family. They're keeping me busy, but they're actually with Nana and Poppy right now as we speak. It's a PD day back home, so they're down just up the street, and it's amazing. And when they come here, it's pretty wild, because we'll go to my parents and they're like, "Daddy, this is you. Are you the boss of this area?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well,
my kids say the same thing. They're like, "You're the counselor. You can do whatever you want." I'm like, "No, I can't."
Yeah. So I'll bring them into the station from time to time, and they'll walk around like, "Hey, my dad's the boss," and it's pretty cute, but it's surreal. Honestly, it's an honor to be able to work in 11 Division, where I grew up, and just see some of the old faces and I actually, some of the officers who work at the division I grew up with. We went to high school together, so it's pretty wild, full circle. But my kids they love it. They're not at that age yet where they're talking about being a police officer.
Would you want them to be?
I mean, of course, I am most proud of this profession. And so, if they wanted to be a police officer, I would never shy them away. Right now, they're into sports. Hockey is the dream, and football. So I'm like, okay, follow. But I would never shy them away.
Fun fact about you, I've seen you as a DJ, And I don't know if we're going to see you DJing anytime soon. You got some things going on, some gigs?
Yeah, it's it is a complete passion of mine, DJing. I've been doing that for a long time. My best friend and I have a small little business that we do little private events. I've done some work things. You know what? If you schedule a party or something, I will absolutely come down and DJ. No worries. It is a passion of mine. It is a passion of mine.
How'd you get into it?
I've just been a music fanatic my whole life, and when I moved out to where I live now, playing soccer, met my buddy who became best friends, and he was actually a DJ. So we're just like, oh, dude, we got to do this, and so we just never looked back. So we've been doing events for years, and absolutely love it.
So I know there's confidentiality about certain things. Are there? But I did want to ask you, like, what are some of the most interesting things that you've been able to do or that you've seen? What was your first case, or what was something that's going to live with you? What are you most proud of?
Wow, it's a great question. So it's funny because there's so many things that I'm really proud of. Like, I mean, obviously this job, and I think if I can just make one quick plug, right now we are hiring, and we are looking for great individuals, and with the budget, the ability to hire the 300, I can't stress enough. This is an amazing job, an amazing career, the ability to care for my family. So go onto our external website and look for the information. A career in policing, you won't go wrong, and we need good people, especially from our community. That's that plug. So when we go back to like some of the things, it's not an easy job. That's there are some calls early on in my career that still stick with me to this day, but it's who I am as an individual, how it shaped me. I will say, so when I was in NPU, which again, our school resource program, that was probably one of the most rewarding because I was only 22, and back then, grade 13, you have students that are 18,
right?
Like only a few years older than them. So it was pretty wild. But just to see the ability to see these kids now as adults, family, and run into them and still have something to talk about has been so rewarding. And then some of the cases, wow, I've had some amazing investigations. Homicide again, the ability to solve murder cases.
Can you tell us one? Is there something you can say?
Yeah. I'd say my last case before coming out to 11 Division was one that was probably one of the longest one. It was a murder in 12 Division at a hotel. It was a robbery using human trafficking. So it was a kind of a setup. They went in, shot an individual, and were on the run. Two young people at the time, and so it was a 2-year investigation. We were able to identify the culprits, but could not find them. They went under
into hiding. Yeah,
2 years. It was a legit search chase, and it was stressful because we knew that they were still committing crimes while they were still on the run, and. I'm leaving out so much, but just to say how we found them was insane. I had a team out in Hamilton, sorry. They were in that area. They went into a convenience store to get a bag of chips because they were kind of doing surveillance, and he walked into the same convenience store. Legit. After 2 years, this is how, and they're standing there with chips in their hand, and they look over and they're like, oh my God. So he looks at them, and they're not in uniform. They were dressed kind of plain clothes, but he knew immediately that they were police.
Yeah, they got made.
And took off, chips in the air. I saw the video from the store, and the chase is on, and it was a foot pursuit for about 5 kilometers, and they ended up getting him. So like 2 years of this chase, and they're just a convenience store in Hamilton where they just happened to meet, and we got him. And that's how I was able to close out my homicide years and then come down to 11 Division. But yeah, the arrests are one thing, but then it's that community connection, community events, just seeing smiles on. That's the one thing that I think most people don't understand. The amount of support we get from the community is overwhelming. And yes, we're dealing with a very small population, criminals and these incidents, but overall the job's amazing.
And let's end on that note, because I've been on the ride along with Chad and a few other folks, and really got to see how much this force sees themselves as part of the community. And going back to Chief Mark talking about how, quoting Peel,
like the guy Peel,
Yeah.
who our region is named after, is that, I might get the quote wrong, but he's talking about how it's policing by the community for the community, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
absolutely it. Yeah.
Yeah, and how, this isn't, this separate thing that's adjacent to us. It's actually woven into the fabric of our community, and that's how we need to see it. And we're trying to do everything we can to support you. You're trying to do everything to keep us safe, and we're doing it together because it's our community.
Absolutely.
So, Josh, thank you for coming on. Thank you for going through this and having this conversation with me. And we'll make sure everybody knows to call 905-453.
3311.
That's right. Thank
Thanks
you so much.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh, once again for coming onto the pod and sharing your stories. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, please email me at alvin.tedjo@mississauga.ca. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. We'll see you next time.